Good morning, everyone. I had to think about what time it was for a brief second there. Welcome to our week 2 of our Healthy Eating Challenge with ConnectWell. Welcome to those of you who might be online. We are recording our Wednesday session because last night we had a blip in our internet and it stopped our recording about a minute 30 into it, and we did not realize, so we did the whole session and then found out it didn't record anything but like the intro splash screen. So, oh, I gotta mute my phone so I can watch the chat but not listen to myself again. So those of you who were here last week and those of you who are new, last week we covered breakfast. We had some samples last week, so we had some overnight oats that we did. We also had a tortilla with a mashed avocado, egg, and turkey, which was quite tasty. So I just want to kind of see, how did you guys feel like you did last week? How'd you do, Pauline? I'm going to put you on the spot.
No, I never have an issue with breakfast. I love breakfast. I always like, it's either oatmeal, and in the oatmeal I'll throw my yogurt. I will put, like if we have blueberries or a banana or something, so, I throw it all together. That or Raisin Bran. This week I did try, well, it didn't look like an omelet. It kind of looked, it fell apart. But anyway, but then I threw in lots of vegetables, broccoli, carrots, and those I heated up in the mic first to get them, like crunchy soft. And then I threw it into eggs. And then that we actually had for lunch, because I'm not an egg eater for breakfast. For some reason I can't. But I felt I did quite well with breakfast.
Yeah. And how did you do?
Kind of watching all day as far as eating healthy and checking the labels and going from there. Yeah, and there too, with breakfast is easy because it's oatmeal, but the overnight oats, it still seems different eating oatmeal cold.
It kind of does, yeah. Like right in my mind, oatmeal is like a warm dish, but there is something. It has like a slightly different texture, yes, right, as it sits overnight and absorbs all of that milk on there. So I just kind of put my mindset that it wasn't oatmeal, and that really helped on there. My brain was able to go, okay, this is how it's supposed to taste.
Couldn't you heat that up though? I mean,
you could,
mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
So,
yep.
Okay.
And I did a lot of the egg wraps last week. So, and I pre-batched my eggs on a sheet pan. So I scrambled them and added red, green, and yellow peppers to it. And so I had my vegetable component in with my eggs, and I just like sheet panned them, and then I pre-cut them and put them in the fridge so that I could just like heat them up real quick in the microwave. And then I used the little avocado cups that we talked about last week, and then some turkey, and I got the whole wheat tortilla shells. And that, it was very filling. Like I found like that did last me like much past where I would normally eat lunch on there. So it really did its job. And this week we are going to have lunch do its job. And so we're going to be doing healthy lunches. So everybody should have a packet. Online, you guys are going to see this. So I'm just going to switch over to my camera for them. And the components of healthy lunches is very similar to the components of healthy dinners when we see that. So you have your plate quadrant out into quarters on there. So with our breakfast, while we are looking for a whole grain, a protein, and a fruit or vegetable, ideally we are going to be looking for lunch to add both a fruit and a vegetable instead of where with breakfast. We're still going to consider those healthy fats when we use like dressings or in how we prepare our dish, as well as our healthy beverages on there. Lunch really is one of the, like, we all know, we all grew up with like breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It kicks your day off. Lunch is really important too. Like we don't maybe think about it. Sometimes we're like, I can just work through lunch. I'm not super hungry. Lunch helps like regulate like your blood sugars so that you can stay energized, so that you don't feel that crash come like 3, 4 o'clock, or you get home and now suddenly you're going to just eat every food item that you just happen to walk past. I did find that as I was like sampling this out throughout the week, it did help me like not grab that cookie that a patron dropped off for all of us to have. We had a patron who very kindly dropped off tag-alongs yesterday for the staff to have, and we joked about it last night because I really like tag-alongs, and I was like, I'm going to be grabbing one of those, and I actually didn't. I was like, I didn't think about it, because I wasn't quite hungry on there, and having that lunch really does help out. It can be tough, especially if you were a parent. When you think of lunches, lots of people think of sandwiches. Like you send your kid to school with a sandwich, right? Or you're packing a lunch that you can eat, because sandwiches are something you can eat really quick. But we can still consider like sandwiches can be really healthy, right? You can use that whole grain, you can get your protein and your vegetables right in there. But salads clearly are really good. And one of the dishes that we're going to do today, we're actually going to do a whole grain bowl that you can use for lunch. You can prepare it ahead of time and then just heat it up in the microwave. It heats up really fast. Bowls can be really easy because they are a little bit portable. They are sized just like kind of just right for lunch on there. Soups are really nice because you can pre-batch soups. Like who just makes one single serving of soup if you're making soup, right? It ends up like you're making soup for like an army. Generally soup will freeze really nice. So you can freeze it and now all right. And so you can have enough like meals of soup that you don't have to have soup every day if you are not a soup person, right? But then you don't have to be cooking though every day for that. So by pre-batching a lot of this stuff, it makes it a lot easier to just grab something and go. One of the packets that you do have is talking about building healthy lunches to go, because a lot of us might not be eating lunch at home, right? We might not have a full kitchen to be able to go and like cook up a whole meal and decide that, I'm gonna cook up like some raw chicken breast and all of those kind of things. So being able to have something that is easy to go will help us be able to like actually eat that lunch. Even if you're gonna work through lunch, you can at least work and eat then at the same time. Pauline knows, both of us have like eaten at our desks.
We do it all the time here.
Yes.
It's just,
And we do encourage we're like, you get a lunch. You should take your lunch. And as I tell everyone, that is very good for your mental health, right? Is that while we are talking about healthy lunches, we should also take care of our mental health as well. And so taking a break are really good things. They do recharge you. As I said, bowls are really a really good lunch option because you can mix them up a lot, right? You can take chicken as a protein, and you could add carrots, or you could add spinach. You could peppers and mushrooms. You can intermix them. You can make them different almost every day, with starting with a base and then just mixing up the things that you add in them, right? Shrimp is a really good option on there, to like just a bag of greens on there and then a little bit of avocado and maybe or you could do like a whole baked potato and add the toppings onto the potato, right? A potato counts as a whole grain on there, so we don't consider it a vegetable. We consider that part of it as a whole grain. So, right, so you can start with a potato, and then you can add a protein, you can add a vegetable, you can add a healthy fat to that. Baked potatoes, once again, can be really easy. They cook very well batched in a crock pot, which is really nice. Instead of maybe like occupying your oven for like an hour and hoping that like you poke just enough holes in it so it doesn't explode. Right in the crock pot, you could put a whole bag in there and let them cook. And then you can, You can still refrigerate them, but then they microwave a little bit easier on there.
And you don't have to prick them if you put them into your crock pot?
I will have to double check on there. I want to say you probably prick them at least just once, but you don't need to have as many on there because of the slower cooking aspect of it. There is a packet if you are interested in regards to just like school lunches. Once again, though, it really is something that you're going to, right? It's not going to change. Like kids are still like people, right? They're just going to eat a smaller portion. We might want to consider like what is available at the school to help them. For instance, my oldest son, like school lunch was fine for him. He didn't care. My youngest son did not like taking school lunch, but he also did not like sandwiches. So it became at first it was a real struggle. Like, how do we like feed you lunch? Like you don't want a sandwich. When the school started introducing like microwaves and that into the lunchroom, that was like a game changer for him because like he could take what I made, like maybe the night before, or we could prepare we would do a lot of bowls for him, like a lot of like chicken and some sort of like side with that, and something that would microwave really fast, and that was fantastic for him. And he did that all the way, I think, through high school on there.
I have a story. I worked at the elementary school lunch program for a number of years. And of course, we serve a balanced meal. You got your protein, your vegetables, your grains or whatever, your milk, and stuff. And these kids, they would put their noses up to it. And we ladies said, we could assemble all of this food into a McDonald's bag, and they take it and they eat it all. Thinking it was from McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Honestly. We just kind of laughed at that.
Yeah.
You knock your head against the wall trying to serve something that they look forward to.
Yeah. Part of our healthy plate is a healthy beverage. We talked a little bit about breakfast beverages, that while coffee is a healthy beverage, the way I drink my coffee would not be a healthy beverage, right? Even today, like that's going to be my struggle. Today I made my coffee and I had like my 2 tablespoons of syrup, and I had my I used whole milk instead of creamer on that one. I'm slowly like tipping down the syrup. I should say I had a little less than the 2 tablespoons than I usually had because I make a big tumbler. But so adding all that stuff into your coffee, right, diminishes any health benefits that you may get from just a straight black cup of coffee. Milk is always a really good source. Water clearly is going to be probably the healthiest beverage that you can take. The average American needs to have 8-ounce glasses of water a day. Now, they don't want you to drink that all at once because your body can't you want your body to be able to be hydrated throughout the day. Healthy unsweetened teas. Like if you want something that has a little flavor to that and you don't want just in addition to water, right? Unsweetened teas are really good. You can take water and you can add fruit slices to it. You could take a little bit of 100% fruit juice. We just want to be careful with that because of the added sugars that are naturally occurring in fruit. Maybe you are a slushy fan. I love slushes. You can add some ice, some water, and a little bit of fruit juice. And now, if you could put it in a blender, but they also sell now little personal-sized blenders, they're portable and all that. And you can charge them up at your computer. They usually stay charged if you use them every day for about a week. They're really quite nice if it's something, right? And I can keep a small blender here at work if I wanted to. For some reason, my brain goes, slushes are different than water. And they're not. It's just crushed ice in a very drinkable form. So sometimes if you really struggle to get that water, just think of alternative ways that that you will be yeah, I like a slush. So right, even if it's right, and I'll drink a slush once the liquid, the normal liquid is gone in there. So I'm clearly I don't mind drinking water. It's just sometimes I would prefer it in a crunchy ice form.
As someone that doesn't like to drink straight water, some of the things I do. I have tried like lemonade packets or flavor packets that you can add to a bottle of water.
Yes.
I like tea. I like just about any kind of tea, and I don't need sweetener to do it because I do it more for the caffeine anyway. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I tend to stay away from the sugary coffees and stuff like that. But as someone that doesn't drink straight water, like you said, I've had to get really creative. Also, I'm diabetic, so I try to be mindful of the sugars.
Yep.
And after years of doing that, I find that just tasting even a diet soda is too much. Fruit juice is too much.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that all started from just needing to drink more water, but not actually liking to drink water.
Yeah. And those extra sweeteners, they do have those that have like a 0 sugar, 0 calorie. As we state, right, they will have like some sort of like artificial sweetener in there. So you always want to kind of check with your doctor to see if that sweetener like will interact with you, with your body, or if there's another sweetener that you should use instead. So always check with your doctor when you are doing drastic changes to your diet. The best way, though, to eat healthy in your next sheet is shopping locally, right? We are lucky in Chilton. We have a very nice small farmers market that starts in June, and I want to say it runs through part of September on there. The reality is when it comes to fruits and vegetables, that the nutrient value of those will decrease the longer it has been harvested. So it is normally at like its peak nutritional value when you pull that right off the vine, if you pull it out of the ground, and the longer it sits, the lower the nutrients will be on there. So a farmer's market is a great way to be able to try to ensure that you get like the highest nutritional value of your fruits and vegetables. What's nice about maybe like a Chilton farmer's market versus maybe like an Appleton one is that your chances of the person who grew those is going to be the person who helps you, right? And that's just because of size, right? Appleton's is so busy that lots of times they have to have additional people who are helping them work their booth. So you might not necessarily get a chance to talk to the farmer. Here, you are most likely going to get a chance to talk to the person who started it in the ground all the way to harvesting it. So you can ask them, right? You can ask when was this harvested? How do you use fertilizer? And do you use anything added on to it? All those kind of things that you can ask at a local farmer's market that you can't ask someone at like Walmart or the Piggly Wiggly, those kind of things, because they don't know on there. One of the best examples is tomatoes, right? Even if you get them and they are harvested at the same time, right? A tomato that is ripened naturally on the vine is going to have a higher nutritional value than a tomato that has to ripen or finish ripening after it's already been pulled off. And so we know that lots of our grocery stores, just because of the bulk of fruits and vegetables that they sell, right? A lot of that produce might not be fully ripe when they pull it, so that it can ripen and not spoil in the grocery store. There. So a farmer's market or a local CSA, which is a community-supported agriculture, right? Those will be where it most likely ripened on the vine. They're not going to be necessarily pulling them and letting them sit and ripe for 5, 10, 15 days or so on that. I don't know if there's anybody like local who does a CSA here in Chilton. I believe Park Ridge Farms, which is located off of 151 towards Fond du Lac, I believe they may do some. And a CSA, if you aren't aware, is like buying a share of a farm. You're buying a share of how that farm is going to do for that season. And instead of your dividend being money that you are getting back, you are going to get your returns in produce. And it will depend on like what type of package you have. I've had them where like I've got one, it was one a week, and I selected one for like a family of 4. And every week you would go, and so if it was a great year, right, your box may be overflowing. If it is a smaller year, right, you're still going to get something, but it might not be as full. It is like the stock market for farmers.
Farming is gambling, regardless what you
Yeah. Right? So the stock market for farmers.
Yes.
It is a great way to support local farmers on there, and a great way for you to be able to either try different fruits and vegetables that you might not normally think of trying, but also just to be able to get fresh fruits and vegetables that haven't been sitting on the store shelves. So if that is something that you're interested in, usually you can just hop on Google and you can be like local CSAs, or you can do like CSAs Wisconsin, and usually there's at least 1 or 2 websites that will have a list of like local farms that do those for you. I know that there was one that like used to be a bread one of the bread companies used to, like, you could do it like a CSA, and then you could add the local bread company too, so they'd add like a fresh loaf of bread as well. So there's lots of different options on there. They're really quite nice. The other aspect of our local, or of our healthy plate, and we're going to showcase all of this with our dish, is choosing healthy fats on there, right? We don't always want to just be throwing, our fruits and vegetables, if we're heating them up, into a dry pan, right? They might stick. Healthy fats add flavor as well, but healthy fats are really important, right? It is recommended that we all get between 20 and 35% of our daily calories from healthy fats on there. So just having that word fat in there is not a negative thing. It is the type of fat that we are really kind of looking for, because healthy fats help us like absorb vitamins, right? It helps keep our immune system going. And we all know that that is kind of important, especially in the wintertime, because we're all indoors, we're all breathing each other's air and whatnot, and it'll never fail. Like right now, we are lucky we're in this room, and all the Storytime kids are out, right? And like Kleenexes aren't always a thing for kids. So having a healthy immune system really kind of will help us out. There is a section in there, I will have to look to see because it didn't print off really well in the printed packets, just in regards to cholesterol and your LDL and your HDL. So some of you may be monitoring your cholesterol, and so depending upon that, you'll want to consider what type of fats and check with your doctor on there. So I can print that out. It's just a little thing that kind of talks about, like, just briefly gives you the difference between your LDL and your HDL. I would recommend, if you have not checked that, check with your doctor and see if that is something that they want to test for you. And they're going to tell you whether or not you are in the right range, or if some of your numbers are too low or too high. I had both, so I always have to kind of keep a watch on there. One of the fats that we are really looking at are unsaturated fats. Those are good fats. Those are the ones that have like our omega-3 fatty acids in there. Some of the examples of those, like avocados, is a healthy fat. For those of you who weren't here last week, they sell avocados are really tasty, but they sometimes are a little finicky, right? You buy them and they're not ripe, and then for some reason they seem to like ripen overnight from ripe to spoiled. So I have found that on a convenience side, because I know I won't be able to eat them all before they go bad, they do sell them in individual little cups that you can freeze if like it's too many so that they don't spoil. They work out really nice. I do that because of the food waste aspect. I don't want to have to throw them out. If you're like, I eat avocados every single day, you'll probably burn through that bag a lot faster than I would burn through it. And so maybe you don't need those little single serving cups, but they are quite nice.
I picked one up this week.
Yes.
And I put one in the fridge and the rest is in the freezer.
Yeah, as I said, they work very nice, and they stay like they're pretty fresh. Like I've had some where like it's like, ooh, here's a pre-done avocado, and it's like, ooh, that tastes a little weird, right? The ones that they sell them here at Walmart, they sell them at Woodman's too. It's just avocado in the packaging. So as we talked about reading our nutritional labels, we can look at that ingredient list, and it just says avocados, and that's it. So we know that that one is going to be a healthy fat for us. Nuts and seeds are a great way to get some of that unsaturated fat that you need. Fish, so you can both double dip on your protein as well as your fat. And then oils. So like I use a lot of like extra virgin olive oil. So olive oil, avocado oil, right? I think it's going to be harder here to get like walnut and macadamia nut. Hold on one second. I'm just going to mute for a second, guys. Make sure I turn this back on. Fantastic. I didn't want to cough into the mic for you who are online. But like you can always hop online, or if you want, going up to Appleton, usually you can find maybe more of those specialty oils that might include like walnut, macadamia nut oil, those kind of things. The next kind of fat that it does occur naturally, are saturated fats. Sometimes it's just going to be hard to avoid those depending on how you're cooking. You're going to find those like in your butter, bacon. It's going to be in like your burgers and like your sausages, cheese, and coconut, which is something I did not realize until I had started like prepping for this class, that coconut also like has a naturally occurring fat into it. So, I mean, the dietary guidelines is trying to get less than 10% of your calories from those. So you don't have to avoid them completely. You just want to minimize like how much you use them on there. Butter is a really hard thing for me because I really like that taste of butter. So sometimes I will do like a blend of butter and olive oil just so I can get a little bit of that buttery taste in there, but still get that healthy fat in there and reduce that amount of saturated fat that I'm using. The one that we're really like trying to avoid though is our trans fats. Now it's getting easier and easier because the federal government did order for it to be phased out of ingredients since 2018 on there. So that is where we're going to find those in like vegetable oils a lot of time. So some of like the butter alternatives used to have a lot of trans fat in them, but now they have started to phase some of them out. The reality though is it's still in some of the items. So if you see a label that says 0 grams of trans fat, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is no trans fat in there. Because if it has less than 0.5 grams, you can still label it as 0. So just like we talked about organic, like you can label organic, but you don't know if it's fully organic unless it is certified on there. The same with trans fat. They can label it as 0 because technically, as rounding happens in math, it is 0 because it is less than 1. But you just kind of want to look at maybe the labels on there. So if you see like partially hydrogenated oil, like that's going to indicate that there's trans fat in there. I think I have it in my desk, but I should be good now. I feel like I may have like gotten through that. And now we have our mic back up. So just consider, right? Bread is always a big thing, right? Some restaurants like to give you a lot of bread. I love a good bread basket. Just realize that a lot of that bread might be a white-based bread, and so it's not going to have any nutritional value. But lots, like, especially I think around in our area here, we're going to find a lot of maybe like whole, like rye breads, pumpernickel, if it's like a true pumpernickel, right? We'll have some of that whole grain aspect of it. So just kind of like take a look and like try to avoid some of the bread if you can. Clearly, soda is a big thing at restaurants. So you can just kind of consider like, what's the beverage that I'm going to have? Now, just because we are eating healthy doesn't mean that we have to avoid everything that maybe brings us a little joy, right? You don't have to necessarily avoid your old fashioned all the time. We are looking at moderation in regards to like being able to have some of that stuff. And as one of our tasks that we did last week is we were looking through our pantry for our breakfast items as to stuff that we were going to consider to keep, stuff we were going to look at just using up until it was gone, stuff we wanted to remove. When we start to finish up through that, right, and work through our pantries and our fridges, right, we are going to have to go shopping at some point, right? We're going to have to feed ourselves again. So in addition to like reading those nutritional labels, we want to kind of consider how a store is laid out, right? They want you to buy certain items. They're going to put those items right at your eye level. So kind of consider, all right, the store is set up to get me to buy stuff. And you want to like think through your shopping trip depending upon like where you live, how long you think, like if you're buying for 6 people, it's going to take you a lot longer in the store than maybe it's going to take like for me to buy for 2, right? Because I'm not having to fill a full cart versus like having to like feed a full family now. So lots of stores will have like all the fresh and perishable foods like right up in front, right? Those are the foods that we all naturally think of right away. They tend to be pretty and colorful, right? There's something that you can touch. So they have them right up in front for you to be able to like touch them and see them. But if you go there first, you're pulling them out of like maybe the slightly cooled area that they need to be in there. So you want to really, when you're shopping, you want to start in that center. You want to start with the items that are not perishable, that are all shelf stable, because they aren't going to spoil in your cart. They are, right? Depending on how long you're in the store. So think about so fill your cart up from your center first and then moving to the like fruits and vegetables section because those tend to not need to be like full refrigeration. And then moving to like your freezer and your fridge section so that those items can like spend the shortest amount of time from freezer to freezer. Right? From you taking it out of the freezer in the store to you putting it into the freezer at home. And that just takes a little time. The more you go to your whichever grocery store you go to, the more you learn their layout, unless they decide to like change it up. I'm still struggling with the Walmart here of like remembering where everything is now. Some of the things that you might want to consider is when you are in the produce section, there are what they call the dirty dozen, and these are going to be fruits and vegetables that tend to absorb toxins more on there. So like they absorb some of the stuff in their environment that they're growing in. So that'll be in your packet. Some of those are like strawberries, spinach, like kale, blueberries, green beans. So you might want to consider purchasing organic on there if that is something that is concerning to, like that would worry you a little bit. That certified organic like just means that they're going to limit the the amount of like toxins that might be used around them. There's also though the clean 15. These are ones that are maybe a little bit more hardy that don't absorb as many of those. So stuff like sweet corn and avocado and pineapples and onions. So those are just things that you can consider. Once again, that is a personal, financial, and doctor preferences that consult those kind of things if you are unsure as to how you would like to proceed with those kind of things. Always, you want to check your expiration dates on there. Now, mind you, those dates they vary because there's no true real guidelines in regards to how a company decides to label, right? You have some that's a use by date, some that's a sell by date, some that don't go bad as soon as it says that it does, but lots of times those are labeled on a liability issue. But it will give you an idea at least of the freshness of the item. So clearly, if you can purchase something that has a much further out expiration date, you have at least a better guidance that maybe it hasn't been sitting on the shelf as long as maybe something that's going to expire tomorrow on there, unless you're planning on using it right away as well. Packaged foods in the grocery store, right? You can still eat healthy and get packaged foods. For the dishes that we're using, that is how I chose to make these dishes, because lots of times convenience is something that we really sometimes need. Like last week, sometimes I am just exhausted when I leave here. My husband's exhausted when he gets home, and having something that I can just quick throw together and not have to dice up a pepper and then onions and then chicken and just all that prep work. But you do pay for that convenience. So it is things to consider. When you're taking packaged foods, check the ingredients on the back. On there, you're going to see what's in there. You're going to see some of those nutritional values and see if they hit those kind of things. The less number of ingredients that are on that list, most likely the healthier it is. Also realize that ingredients are listed in order of quantity. So that very first item in that ingredients list, that is the most of that. It's by weight. So if you know that, you have an item that whole grain is the first thing on there, you know that there's going to be a lot more whole grain in there than if it's the fifth item down. That might just mean that they just have a little bit so that they can put on their label whole grain on there. So those are just the things that we want to look at. We want to look at the added sugars as reading those nutritional labels. And now I'm going to move over to our dishes and kind of show those. As we did last week, as I'm preparing that, just you'll have a packet in regards to going through your pantry again, like we did this time. Last week we did it for breakfast. This week we're going to look at our lunch items and review our pantries to see what we have in there, the items that we might want to keep, the items that we would look at just using up, and then the items that we don't want to use. And if they are not expired and they are still new, it's not opened, we don't want to get the Salvation Army does take items. So so one of the dishes that we are going to do is a whole grain bowl that has a protein and a vegetable in there. So I used a prepackaged rice and quinoa blend. So this has a whole grain brown rice in there. It has quinoa. It has red rice in here. There is, I was just going to take a look and just see what else is there. There's a little bit of sunflower oil in here just to kind of keep it from clumping together. This was nice because it just heats up in 90 seconds to a minute 45. break it up because it's sat just a little bit. This, when I made this dish, was 2 servings. So I made one for myself, and I made a bowl for myself and a bowl for my husband that we then had in the fridge. So pretty much you're just going to heat up that rice and quinoa. Then, for on the convenience side, I took just some rotisserie chicken that was from Walmart's. You could, though, like pre-batch and cook up either chicken breasts or chicken thighs on there. So you're going to have, it is going to have a much more healthier aspect to it. This does have, right, they do have some spice blends in here. There is some like salt. So just kind of taking a look and checking our label on there. It is a really nice, though, convenience item. You can also, like if you're up at Costco, I think you can buy like a rotisserie chicken for like $5. That package, I was able to divide into thirds. So I would be able to get like 3 sets of 2 lunches out of that. So all I did was like I diced that up a little bit, and then I heated it up in the microwave just for it to be a little warm so that it would break up a little easier. And for today, we're not microwaving it ahead of time. And then I got a frozen, like oven roasted sweet potatoes, potatoes and carrot blend. All that's in there are those 3 items, and then like some salt and pepper on there is in there, and garlic powder. So they have like a little seasoning blend to that. These are in the freezer section. These are super easy to work with. I threw it here from our freezer here at the library. We have a small convection oven. Threw it on a cookie sheet and let this cook up. And then I just kind of like cut the carrots up into a little smaller pieces. And I can now throw that into this bowl. They have, right, I like to use the frozen ones, especially during like spring, like winter, spring, and like late fall, because they don't go bad. They're right in the freezer. I will take like frozen broccoli, right, frozen like potatoes. They have a pepper and onion blend. Throw it on a cookie sheet, roast it up in there instead on there. So it's a nice way to get those without having to worry about it going bad if you are like trying to, like if you're purchasing for a long period of time. And then, so I just roasted those up. I just mix it up so it's well mixed. If I was preparing this for lunches for another day, I would just I would scoop this up, divide it up into individual servings, and then my husband and I add a dressing to it. So my husband used a tahine, this is just a sesame sauce. There's nothing else in here but sesame on there. I also tried a simple like green goddess dressing with avocado, so it has that healthy fat. There is a limited number of ingredients in here. So there's buttermilk, avocado, some yogurt, some olive oil, and then some seasonings on there.
And you got those both
At Walmart?
Walmart.
Yep. And so the dressing, that one is located over by the refrigerated, like prepackaged salads in that.
Okay.
And I believe the tahine is over in like the section with like the Indian and Mexican food as well. The tahine is shelf stable. It doesn't need to go into the fridge on there. That simple green goddess dressing, though, is a refrigerated item. So pretty much we're just going to scoop these into some bowls to sample, and you can just put some dressing on there, and that was it for lunch. And I found that, I mean, you can see this is supposed to be a serving for 2 people. It is it is a lot. Maybe next time, I think I could get at least 3. I think my husband would eat half of that, but I think I could probably narrow that down into like 2 additional ones for myself. Another lunch that I did was a quick like pumpernickel and cottage cheese sandwich. Well, not like an open-faced sandwich. So I took and we discussed this last night too, a natural pumpernickel. This is the one item I don't think that you could get at Walmart. I have not found it there. Doesn't mean it's not there. I may just not be looking in the right spot. In my mind, this is the only type of pumpernickel that exists. I know that like somebody sells one that is like a soft pumpernickel. I don't know if it's just like pumpernickel flavored. In my mind, that's not pumpernickel. This is what pumpernickel is supposed to look like. This is the pumpernickel I've always had. So I was able to find mine up. Meyer in Appleton sells it. World Market has it. I'm gonna keep looking and see if I can find it. But this dish was pretty easy. Oop, I don't want that one. I want my other bowl. This one, for a single serving, would be a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese. This one here is a 1/2 cup, so we're going to double that. I'm just going to throw that in there. Then it's just going to be a little dill. You can use, right, clearly we would normally want to use fresh dill, but I didn't want it to go bad, and I had this whole thing of dill at home, and was like, how am I going to use this dill? I would say add dill to taste. A little bit of olive oil to it. About a teaspoon. And now you could add your protein of choice. I am using a prepackaged like chicken just so that I could show how it is used. This you can find in like the tuna, like the canned meat section. These can be really nice if like you're at work and you want to like, and maybe you don't have a fridge like available to you and have like some chicken in there. So these are shelf stable, which is nice. They do sometimes say that they are like, you don't have to drain it. Instead, I don't like to dump it because there will still be some liquid in there, and I don't want to necessarily dilute out the rest of this. But you could use chicken, you could use salmon, tuna. You don't have to. You could just add vegetables to it if you'd like. So I just made put a whole pouch in there, and then I just am going to stir that up a little. And on a serving side, right, we just put a little bit onto the pumpernickel. And then for this one, I just used a few cut up pieces of cucumber, but you could use like any vegetable. You could add onions to this dish if you'd like. And that was it. And I found like a whole slice of pumpernickel is 1 serving of whole grain. This bowl here would be 1 serving as well, but I found that it was a lot. I feel like it could have been even less, a little bit less than that. But they were really quite tasty, right? And they were, as you can see, they were really easy to make up. The longest that was roasting the vegetables, but everything else like was super fast. So as a lunch, if you have this all pre-made, this dish here, probably the grain bowl, heats up in here at the library. I have a lower watted microwave. Took probably about 2 minutes to fully heat up. Like a minute, stir it, another minute. At a higher watt microwave, about maybe a minute to 90 seconds on there. So after class, you guys can try all that. The other items that you have in your packet is your weekly planner. So this is gonna like last week we just filled out the breakfast row. So this week we are gonna fill out that lunch row and breakfast, as well as there is a shopping guide for you if you want to use that. And the same thing, we had a breakfast row, and now we're gonna also have a lunch row that we're gonna work on filling up. So after class, I'm gonna send out an email with all of these documents again, as well as the recipes for these 2 items that we had. And if you're interested, there is a Facebook group that you can participate in. It's not a requirement. Some people like to just like have someone to touch base with and just be like, hey, look at this picture of what I just made on there. So you can certainly do that. We will also then have just a link to to our YouTube page. So if you ever want to go back and you can and you just were like, oh, what did we talk about? You can always kind of go back and look at that. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week where we are looking at dinners. So all we have left is next week is dinners. The week after will be snacks. And then our final week will be our celebration on there of like how we did and like how we want to move forward. So I want to thank you online. I want to thank you who are here in person. And I look forward to seeing you guys all next week. And then here, the people in person, we're going to get to try these dishes now. So thanks, everyone.